I'm gonna take that anger and write it down. March into town, can you hear the sound? I'm gonna take that anger and turn it around and turn it into love. I'm gonna take that doubt and write it down. March into town, can you hear the sound? I'm gonna take that doubt and turn it around and turn it into love. Love, 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 love. Turn it all into love. Love, 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 love. Turn it all into love. I'm gonna take that mistreatment and write it down. March into town, can you hear the sound? I'm gonna take that mistreatment and turn it around and turn it into love. I'm gonna take that fear and write it down. March into town, can you hear the sound? I'm gonna take that fear and turn it around and turn it into love. Love, 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 love. Turn it all into love. Love, 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 love. Turn it all into love. Love, 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 love. Turn it all into love. Love, 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 love. Turn it all into love.
Welcome to WellSprings online service. I'm Kathleen Higgins. My pronouns are she and her, and it's my honor and my blessing to serve as your worship leader this morning. Each week when we gather, even when we must gather at a distance, we light a chalice, not only as a symbol of our spiritual heritage as Unitarian Universalists, but to recognize that divine spark within each of us, both emerging and eternal. That divine spark in each of us that's illuminating our lives and the lives of everyone that we meet. Each time that we meet, we light our chalice. And after the chalice is lit, then we say together, we light our chalice to celebrate the path lit before us, the warmth of kindness that shines from within us, and the radiance of wisdom that is shared between us and never goes out. The mission of WellSprings is to be a community charged full with the charge of the soul. And as we're outside this morning, will we have enough traffic as we go back to our vigorous economy? Will we have enough peace as we try to rewrite a society with maybe a little bit more kindness, some compassion, a little bit more decency, a little bit more inclusion? We got work to do, as Ken had pointed out in last week's message. And also for those of you who might be pondering a little bit on what Josie had offered last week, as I have, the concept of enough. For me, being charged full with the soul has been me taking a look at our struggle with enough. Our struggle individually, maybe, as a society. When is it enough? What is enough? I realized, at least for me, that enough struggles with greed. Because for me, not enough equals that I'm getting greedy sometimes. Not enough sometimes can pull me into some analysis and planning and getting busy. But the real question for me about enough in this universe, is there enough that we can discover on our spiritual path? Can we discover a greater ability to love, a deeper will of compassion? By grace, will we realize there is enough? Thank you. Our beloved community is gathering virtually right now. I know you just saw my beautiful front yard, well, or maybe it's my backyard, because our property comes to a little point. So sometimes it's one, sometimes the other. I just wanted to share it with you this morning. So how do we connect from afar? Things like our video to show what we're living with this early summer. And let's be grateful for this kind of technology. Our website has phone numbers, and we have email addresses for our ministers and our staff, along with a lot of other information about us. So you can see on the screen media addresses that we can be in touch with each other. And there's a link in the video description that you can click on to sign up for our weekly email newsletter. That's a great way to make sure that you never miss any of the online offerings, like the programming for kids and the meditation and drop-in hours with our ministers. It goes without saying that any time, but especially in any strange and difficult times like these, please reach out to us anywhere, anytime. Now, Jessica has got a couple of announcements for us.
Hi WellSprings, my name's Jessica Heichel, and I have two announcements for you this week. The first is that it is the return of in-person lunch with Reverend Lee. So on Thursdays between 11 and 1, she's going to be making herself available at various area restaurants, mostly with outdoor seating. And she will also be available via Zoom for those who wish to remain remote. So I will put some information into the chat that will take you to a Realm post talking more about this. Second announcement is also an in-person announcement. Coming up this week on Wednesday, Reverend Ken is going to do an in-person drop-in mindfulness session, weather permitting. I'll put a little info about that into the chat as well, and we're looking forward to hopefully seeing some of you in person. Thanks so much, everyone, and I'll see you next week.
At WellSprings, the foundation, really, of everything that we do is found in the power of connection. So making space in our lives for each other. We can take a few moments now, and you might want to be able to type a great greeting into the chat window on the side of the screen, or you might make a quick note for someone to share with. Maybe take a selfie of yourself watching at home, and reach out after the service. Send a text, phone someone who might really appreciate a call. How about also joining the online coffee hour this morning on Zoom? It's 11 o'clock right after the service. And the Zoom link is also in the video description. Let's take a moment now for exchanging greetings. As always, thank you for these warm greetings. And I invite you now into our time of generosity. It's a time to reflect upon and to express our gratitude for the role WellSprings plays in our lives and in our wider world. You know, kindness, compassion, generosity makes such a difference now more than ever. As you think about a moment for the value WellSprings has in your life, especially in these times, we hope that you can choose to share a gift with us. If you have a smartphone handy, you can text WSPRINGS to 73256. You'll get a link that'll then help you complete a gift online. For your support of WellSprings and all that we do and share, thank you so much. Thank you. Just as we take the time to share the energy of connection among us and generosity beyond us, let's now devote some time to reground into that deep and soulful energy that's within ourselves. We do this by doing what is most simple and elemental in our lives. We take a breath. We inhale and exhale without rush or hurry. We breathe in and we breathe out. There's nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be. We can be here together now. We follow these words from Thich Nhat Hanh into our time of mindful silence. If we want to enter heaven on earth, we need only one conscious step and one conscious breath. Let us cultivate peace and experience presence in this quiet time together. Wherever it is that we are, whatever it is that we're doing, and however it is that we're feeling, let us remember that peace and presence are always as close to us as is our own breath. May this be so for you this moment. May it be so for you this day. May it be so for you in the days to come. And may it be so for all of us. When we gather in person, this is the time that we dismiss all our kiddos to their time together in youth spirit. In these days, youth spirit is meeting on Zoom every Sunday at 9 a.m. So for now, let's see if we have any shout-outs to or from our youth in this week's Youth Spirit Yell!
you need is faith to hear the Jesus coming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. Getting ready, I'm getting ready, getting ready. So people get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the Jesus coming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. Miss you.
Hello, WellSprings and guests. My name is Beverly Fox, and I am thrilled to once again be serving as your lay preacher today with another message from our summer series of messages, Spirit Flicks, about the spiritual messages that we receive from our screens, which I know that we've all been using quite a lot of over the past year. Today I'm going to be talking to you about one of my favorite television series of all time, The Good Place. This was an American comedy program that aired from 2016 to 2020. It has, since its airing, gone on to win countless awards, critical acclaim, all that other good stuff. But at its heart, it is a terribly endearing and very wonderful program about life after death, interestingly enough. And before I get into the details of kind of some of the messages that I've gotten from watching this program, I wanted to share just a little bit about kind of why it is so meaningful to me. As many of you know, because I've been very kind of vocal about sharing about it, because I believe that that's important, I struggle with depression and anxiety. And this particular time of the year, it tends to get really bad, just because summertime is not a particularly good time for me. And in some of my more anxious and or depressed states, my thought process can become very, very dark very, very quickly. And one of the core things that I tend to worry about more than pretty much anything else in my life is this whole question of, am I a bad person? Because I have made this mistake or hurt this person or had this failure in my life, am I a bad person? Am I messing up? Am I not enough? Anyone who's ever read Tara Brach knows about this trance of unworthiness that she talks about, where we fear that whatever it is that we are constituted of just is not enough to be able to deal with life on life's terms, to be lovable, to be worthy, to be part of, our existence as we have it. And because that's a question that constantly pops up for me, and a reassurance that I tend to need to provide myself on a regular basis, it's kind of helpful to know what a good person is. And that, in a nutshell, is kind of what The Good Place is about. It begins with Eleanor Shellstrop, played by Kristen Bell, who I'm sure you all know is utterly adorable. She finds herself being welcomed into the afterlife and told that she is in the good place because she was a good enough person during her life. And she gets a tour of the neighborhood by Michael, the architect. And she meets Janet, an AI, who is there to provide her with anything she may need. And she meets some of the other humans that are part of the neighborhood with her. There is Chidi, the ethical and moral philosopher who spent his entire life kind of studying this question of what does it mean to be a good person. There is Tahani, who spent her entire life doing fundraising in order to give money to charities. And obviously it's clear that she's a good person. That makes sense, right? And we have Jason, who is not who he appears to be when we first meet him, and also not a person that you would normally immediately think of as a good person, but someone who, in his kind of simplicity, is very much concerned with the things that are most important: friendship, loyalty, helping other people. And that's kind of what brings us into this world of the good place. And from there, things start to go wrong very, very quickly. And we learn a whole lot of things about this afterlife that lead us to believe that it's not quite the utopia it originally presents itself to be. And one of the first things that we can kind of take away from the good place, not surprisingly, is an answer to this question of what does it mean to be a good person? What does it take? And in the beginning, we have a bunch of philosophical and moral perspectives presented by Chidi, our resident philosopher. And he goes over everything from the basics of Aristotle and Socrates to the more complex kind of thinking styles of Kant and Kierkegaard. And he talks about kind of a variety of different thought experiments that one could do to try to answer this question. And we learn very early on that motives matter quite a lot, why you're doing what you're doing, and doing the right thing for the wrong reasons is actually not so good. We learn about, it's not just a matter of kind of numbers, how many people benefit from a particular thing doesn't outdo the suffering that may be done to the people who don't. And relatively early on, we start to see these characters who I think become endearing to us very early on, doing some things selflessly, trying to be kind to other people, finding themselves, to a certain extent, sacrificing themselves for the greater good of people that they have come to feel close to, that they have come to feel a kinship with. So, Chidi and all of his moral philosophies aside, the answer becomes kind of relatively quickly, be good. Practice goodness towards other people. Try to be kind, try to be helpful, try to be caring and compassionate. And if you can be, selfless from time to time. And yeah, we're all human, that's easier said than done, but in a nutshell, and it happens time and time again in the show, when we see our characters kind of making the most valuable decisions and learning the most important lessons, these are the things that it always comes back to. Kindness, caring, positive regard for one's fellow man. And as much as that may have a whole variety of different religious undertones from a whole variety of different religions, at its basis, that message is very core to, I think, all life after death questions and this answer to what it means to be a good person. And our architect, Michael, who we learn more about as the series goes on, I think sums it up very beautifully when he tells us that what matters isn't if people are good or bad. What matters is if they're trying to be better today than they were yesterday. Which brings us pretty quickly to part 2. Poe Buddy is nerfic. This is a comical mispronunciation of nobody's perfect, meaning I'm demonstrating the fact that I make mistakes by making a mistake in my saying of it. Our humans are terribly flawed, and even in their quest to kind of earn the right to be in a good place and prove that they are in fact good people, they mess up a lot. And even Michael, the architect of this afterlife neighborhood that they're all existing in, messes up a lot. And even our AI, Janet, who seems like she should be infallible, messes up. Maybe not a lot, certainly not nearly as much as everyone else does, but she definitely learns some lessons along the way. She definitely finds out some things that don't necessarily compute with her programming. And both she and Michael, our architect, over the course of the series become more and more human because they make mistakes, because they are fallible, because their plans, as much as they thought that they figured out all of the different criteria that they needed to in order to come up with the best plan to execute, failed over and over and over again. And our humans, by virtue of being human, failed over and over and over again. And that's kind of an underlying message of the whole series, is that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to mess up. In all of our efforts to try to be better versions of ourselves, there's going to be 1,000,001 different less better versions of us along the way. And the only thing that determines, as Michael said previously, what makes us good people or not is that we keep trying. We keep working. We try to be better versions of ourselves. We try to be better people. We try to handle situations better than we did in the past. And that's really all we can do. And again, I quote Michael, our resident architect, who tells us, you fail, and then you try something else. And you fail again, and again, and you fail 1,000 times. And you keep trying, because maybe the 1,001st idea might work. And our characters learn more and more about this world that they're in, this afterlife that has been constructed. And much like they themselves, it is not perfect. The whole thing operates based on a relatively convoluted and complicated points system that, for all of its intricacies, is actually pretty black and white. There are good points for doing the right thing and bad points for doing the wrong thing, and then depending upon your total at the end of your life, that determines bing, bang, boom, heaven, hell, done. And shockingly enough, human life is a lot more complicated than that. And you can't judge someone's actions on that kind of a black and white scale, because things are complicated nowadays. You can do the right thing for the right reasons and still have things go terribly wrong. You can try your best to be caring and kind and still hurt people that you care about very deeply. You can set your best intentions to have things go according to plan, controlling for all the variables that you could possibly control for, and then still have things completely fall apart. And that brings us to part 3, pandemonium. I don't know about you guys, but I often struggle to make sense of the world that we live in, because it very, very rarely does. Most of the things that I understood to be logical, to make sense, to be like, well, of course, this must be the way that this works because that's what makes sense. Things don't work that way. And the world, as I feel like it should be, is not. And Lord, if there's anything that ever proved that, it's just turning on the news. We had literally an insane person as the president for 4 years. We had an entire pandemic that is still shutting down the country in large parts of it. And there's all of these people arguing about science and other things and saying, well, that's just not true, even though logic would make you think that it's true. And there's racism and sexism and poverty and people treating people really, really terribly. And a lot of things that people do to try to improve these things, to heal trauma, to undo damage, to provide aid and caring and nurturing and support, don't work. And we're constantly finding that previous message of failing and failing again and failing again popping up, because the only thing that we can do is keep trying. And in the midst of all of it, we also have to try to find a way to be okay when things are not okay, as they very rarely are. And that kind of core message of, how can I sit with this? How can I be okay with this? How can things being as devastating as they are right now not break me and allow me to still strive to be the best version of myself, care about the people that I love, provide aid and support as I can, and not turn into some cynical, nasty person who just does whatever they do because what the heck is the point in trying? which is something that our characters in the series struggle with a lot. What's the point? Why am I doing all this? My efforts keep failing. Why do I try? And the answer is because that's kind of all we got. Life is complicated and messy, and being a human means that we're going to keep on falling flat on our faces over and over again. But we don't really have any other choice. We're not AIs that were designed to be perfect. And again, our AI in this series really isn't. We're not architects that were designed to create some structure to test out humans and help them kind of prove to be better versions of themselves. We're human. We're flawed. We make mistakes all the time. So the best that we can do, I think, is to try to be at peace when things aren't peaceful, to try to stay as calm as we can when things are chaotic. And this quote comes from Eleanor, our kind of heart of our story, who says, "I guess all I can do is embrace the pandemonium. Find happiness in the unique insanity of being here now." Over the course of the series, our characters, our humans, change a lot. Even our AI changes a lot and becomes a lot more human. She experiences human emotions. She goes through human heartbreak. She finds that even her efforts, as perfectly designed as they are, fail. And she becomes a version of herself that is a lot more in touch with the human experience. And because of that, she becomes a really good friend. She becomes a really good lover. She becomes a really good partner. And Michael, our architect, who it turns out is an afterlife entity, who originally did not think terribly highly of humans. He thought that they were kind of just really simple creatures, and, you know, of course it makes sense they're treating each other so terribly because they're not very intelligent. This is just how they are. He comes to love the humans that he has been kind of aligned with through all of these different quests over the course of the series, and to really, really envy them and their experience, as flawed and messed up and messy as it is. And that's where we kind of come to part 4. All good things must come to an end. Life is precious because it is finite. Life is meaningful because death is something that awaits all of us. Our experiences are manageable and they're really painful because we know at some point in there they'll end. And our joys are valuable because we know at some point they will end. And interestingly enough, what they come to find out about eternity and the afterlife is that that too doesn't actually mean anything if there isn't an end. So they come up with a new way for humans to be evaluated in life after death. They kind of fix heaven and hell and all the structures involved. They rewrite things from scratch. And eventually they come to a point where they are at peace. And each one of our characters, in their own way, gets to experience a version of the end that is really poignant and meaningful for them, and for us as the audience that has come to love them over the course of the past 4 seasons. And our architect, who, as I pointed out, is very, very envious of these humans that he has come to love so deeply, eventually gets what he wants most in the world. Spoiler alert. He gets to go back and be human. He gets to have all of the experiences that he has seen these people go through firsthand. And in thinking about what life is like for him, what his experience and journey is going to be, Eleanor kind of, I think, sums up the human experience in a very simple but very eloquent way. She says, "I assume he's doing the same as every human. Some good days, some bad days. He's got a few friends, a few people he can't stand. He's learning some things all by himself and hopefully learning to ask for help when he needs it. He's messing up and trying again and messing up again, and then things go wrong, and then trying to make things right. That's what everyone does. And obviously that's kind of an oversimplification of the human experience, but it's also kind of its purest form. Trying and trying again and doing our best. Now is the time when I would ask you if you are comfortable to close your eyes, to join me in hearts and mind in this moment of kind of moving inwards a little bit, noticing the breath in your lungs and the beat of your heart, noticing the experience of being right here, right now, exactly as you are. And we're going to do a little practice that I have become very fond of, known as rain, which may be familiar to you. So we're first simply going to recognize, what does it feel like to be here right now, both in our physical presence of our bodies, in all of the thoughts that we may have in our minds, and all of the emotions that come with those. There may be chaos, there may be calm, there may be joy, there may be sadness. Whatever is here right now, just see if you can allow yourself to experience it, which is the A of rain. Allow, accept. To simply be okay, even if you're not okay. And then the I, which is to investigate not only the physical experience of our emotions and the way that they feel, whether our chest is heavy or our throat is tight, whether we notice that our body actually is calm and we can sit comfortably resting where we are, but also investigating all of the thoughts, all the stories, all of the judgment and criticism, all the things that come along with that voice in our heads nagging us and putting us into that trance of unworthiness. Investigating that. Investigating whether or not that is true. Whether or not we too can use a little compassion, a little allowance for our own humanity. And then finally, which is nourishing ourselves. Maybe saying something caring to ourselves. Maybe offering forgiveness for ways in which we feel like we have failed. Maybe recognizing that this is simply part of being human, and we can be better versions of ourselves simply by trying to be better, even if we don't always get it right. And then letting go of the practice and opening your eyes. I wish to say thank you so much for listening to this message today.
There are no countries, there are no sides. I don't know why they draw these lines. I don't know what you see here, but there's nothing
And as always, as we end our service today, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light inside of it. And together we say, as we release this flame from its faithful service today, we allow the spark in each of us to burn on, to warm our compassion, to fire our delight, to light our paths today, tomorrow, and always. Fail, fail again, fail better, and be human.